ब्रह्म विचार सार परमा आद्यां जगद्व्यापिनीं वीणा पुस्तकधारिणीं अभयदां जाड्यान्धकारापहां हस्ते स्फाटिकमालिकां विदधतीं पद्मासने संस्थितां वन्दे तां परमेश्वरीं भगवतीं बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम्।
जाड्यान्धकारापहम माँ तिमिरनाशक अज्ञान के तिमिर का नाश करें, इस भाव के साथ यह दीप प्रज्वलन और पुष्पार्चन। अतिथि देवो भव, ये हमारी परंपरा है। माँ सरस्वती के पुष्पार्चन के बाद आए हुए अतिथियों का स्वागत अभिनंदन करने के लिए मैं अपने कुलमुखिया आदरणीय प्रोफेसर रघुवेंद्र तंवर जी से आग्रह करता हूँ कि यहाँ उपस्थित तीनों अतिथियों को बुक सेट, हमारा जो पब्लिकेशन है, जो शब्द पुष्प हैं प्रकाशित स्वरूप में, उनको प्रदान करने का कार्य करें। ले आइए बुक सेट, केवल बुक सेट्स ले आइए। आज के कार्यक्रम के मुख्य अतिथि आदरणीय श्री एस सोमनाथ जी, ICHR के रिसेंट पब्लिकेशंस, प्रोफेसर वसंत सिंधे जी को, और मातृस्वरूपा आदरणीय प्रोफेसर नीरजा अरुण गुप्ता जी को। आदरणीय सदस्य सचिव प्रोफेसर उमेश अशोक कदम जी से मेरा आग्रह कि वो सभी तीनों अतिथियों को लपल पिन, नागा पट्टिका, नागालैंड की जो गमछा है वो, और स्मृति चिन्ह, ये तीनों प्रदान करें। सर्वप्रथम आदरणीय प्रोफेसर श्री एस सोमनाथ जी को पारंपरिक तिलक, आपकी करतल ध्वनि अगर तालियों की गूंज सुनाई देती रहे तो जल्दी से आदरणीय प्रोफेसर वसंत सिंधे जी को तिलक, स्मृति चिन्ह, पट्टिका और लेपल पिन। सांची बुद्धिस्ट इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटी की माननीय वाइस चांसलर प्रोफेसर नीरजा अरुण गुप्ता जी को, शब्द पुष्पों से अतिथि स्वागत, अभिनंदन और आज के 51st फाउंडेशन डे लेक्चर की प्रस्ताविकी के लिए मैं अपने सदस्य सचिव आदरणीय प्रोफेसर उमेश अशोक कदम जी से निवेदन करता हूं कि वे इंट्रोड्यूस करें सब्जेक्ट को।
A very good afternoon to all my colleagues, my friends, distinguished dais, eminent erudite personalities on the dais for today's function, Professor Vasant Shinde ji, Professor Nirja Arun Gupta ji, Professor S. Somnath ji, Professor Raghuvinder Tanwar ji, our director, Dr. Omji Upadhyay. It is indeed a very important and wonderful moment for ICHR, that ICHR is now taking a leap. It has crossed 50 and it has gone into its 51st foundation day. And it makes ICHR proud. Since its inception, 1972, ICHR has dedicated itself to the service of the nation. In the last 65 years, Indian history has taken many ups and turns. There are many historiographical representations of India being done. But this is a time when India is witnessing the Amrut Kal. It is a time when India is witnessing that it should be the Vishwa Guru in all sectors of life, its aspects, its culture, its modalities. ICHR is also trying to find a way out to do and offer its services not only to academicians, research scholars, but to laymen and students across the globe within India also. Today, we have eminent personalities with us. Firstly, I would like to introduce our chairman. Our chairman, Professor Raghuvinder Tanwar ji, is chairman ICHR, Indian Council of Historical Research. He was born in 1955 and has an outstanding academic record with 2 gold medals at the postgraduate level for standing first in the MA history and for securing the highest percentage of marks in the Faculty of Social Sciences, Kurukshetra University, 1977. Then Kurukshetra University was known as one of the prominent universities in the departments of social sciences across India. He joined as lecturer history at Kurukshetra University in the monsoon of 1977 and was selected as a professor in the open selection in 1997. He superannuated after 38 years of academic service, and in 2015, Professor Tanwar was honored with the position of Professor Emeritus, which is the highest position by Kurukshetra University. At Kurukshetra University, he also served as Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and the Dean of the Academic Affairs. He was director of the Haryana Academy of History and Culture from 2016 to December 2021. The Academy is an autonomous body of the government of Haryana, and he was also nominated as chairman of ICHR in January 2022, which is one of the most important positions which he has secured in India as ICHR to be the apex body of Indian history. Professor Tanwar has reputedly been contributing to the study of partition of India, mainly in Punjab. His works on the partition of Punjab, reporting the partition of Punjab, Press, Public and Other Opinions, 1947, published by Manohar and Vanguard, have received worldwide attention and has impacted the mainstream narrative, making the study an important point of reference. He is also acclaimed for his important research on the history of Jammu and Kashmir in the critical phase of 1947-1953. His book, Be Clear, Kashmir will vote for India, Jammu and Kashmir, 1947-1953, is an epoch-making work. Reporting the contemporary understanding of the unreported, published by Routledge, and he has questioned the existing common historical narratives explaining how public opinion in Kashmir, irrespective of religion, for example, was clearly in favor of merger of India, the study which is based mainly on year to untapped sources. Professor Tamar's latest work, which has come out in 2021, The Story of India's Partition, which has an illustrations of 240 photographs, has been published by the Publication Division, Government of India, in Hindi as well as in English. As director of the Haryana Academy History and Culture, he edited 5 volumes on the speeches and writings of Punjab's legendary peasant leader, Shri Chotu Ramji, and 2-volume collection of writing and speeches of Dr. Mangal Sen, the popular leader of the Punjab and Haryana. His other publications include well-received compilations of articles written for the national newspapers over a period of 20 years titled Frankly Speaking. He has also co-authored an illustrated biography of Bansilal published in English and Hindi. This volume is well received. He has been a National Fellow of the UGC Research Award, an awardee of the UGC Major Research Project, and a Foreign Travel Research awardee of the ICHR, a member of Indian Council of Historical Research, editorial member of the Indian Historical Records Commission, and Professor Tawar's contribution to the field of history has been widely acknowledged. He was also the president of the modern section of the Punjab History Conference and later general president of Punjab History Conference in 2017. He was president of the contemporary section of the Indian History Congress. Professor Tawar is associated with several educational institutions, particularly in rural areas. He is a well-known sportsman, having captained the Kurukshetra University and the Haryana State lawn tennis teams. And the most important thing is that Professor Tawar ji is a Padma Shri. Another very well-reputed scholar who stands with us today, internationally acclaimed, is Shri Sridhara Panikar Somnath ji. He is the chairman of ISRO. Shri Somnath ji is the Secretary Department of Science, Space and Chairman Space Commission. Shri Somnath ji assumed charge after a stint of 4 years as director at the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, VSSC, Thiruvananthapuram. He has also served as the director of the Liquid Propulsion System Center at LPSC, Valaimala for 2.5 years. Shri Somnath ji obtained his BTech in Mechanical Engineering from TKM College of Engineering, Kollam, and Masters in Aerospace Engineering from the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru. Specializing in structures, dynamics, and control with a gold medal, he joined VSSC in 1985 and was a team leader for the integration of PSLV during the early phases. Shri Somnath ji is an expert in the area of system engineering of launch vehicles. His contribution in PSLV and GSLV Mk3 were in their overall architecture, propulsion stage design, structural dynamic designs, separation systems, vehicle integration, and integration procedures development. He is the recipient of the Space Gold Medal from the Astronautical Society of India. He received the Merit Award and the Performance Excellence Award from ISRO and a Team Excellence Award from GSLV Mk3 development. He is a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering, INEAE, a fellow of the Aeronautical Society of India, AESI, Astronautical Society of India, ASI, and a corresponding member of the International Academy of Astronautics, IAA. He is in the Bureau of the International Astronautical Federation, IAF, and a recipient of the National Aeronautics Prize from the Aeronautical Society of India, ASI. He has published papers in journals, seminars in structural dynamics and control, dynamic analysis of separation mechanics, vibration and acoustic testing, launch vehicle design, and launch service management. With due respect, sir, we invite you here today, and we are really overwhelmed by having your gracious presence among us. We should also congratulate Shri Somnath ji for yesterday the ISRO scientists for their spectacular launch on India's largest rocket, LVM-3M3, one India 2 carrying 36 satellites from Sriharikota that was launched yesterday morning, which shows the commitment of Bharat as one of the 5th important space capital of the world. Another eminent scholar who shares space with us in this important program today is Professor Vasant Shindeji, former professor and vice chancellor at the Deccan College, postgraduate and research institute, deemed University Pune, and founding director general, National Maritime Heritage Complex and Museum, Lothal, and presently CSIR Bhatnagar Fellow at the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, CCMB, Hyderabad, is a world-renowned archaeologist cum museum expert and one of the foremost scholars in South Asia. Professor Vasant Shindeji is also an adjunct professor at the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT BHU, Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Hyderabad, and the Central University of Haryana. Professor Shinde is also advisor to the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Government of India on the National Maritime Heritage Complex and Museum. Professor Vasant Shinde obtained his BA in History from the University of Pune and a master's degree first class in AIHC and Archaeology from Deccan College, deemed University. He subsequently completed his PhD in Proto-Historic Archaeology of Early Settlements in Central Tapi Basin from the same university. He completed his postdoctoral research program from the University of Cambridge and the International Research Center of Japanese Studies, Kyoto, Japan. Professor Shinde has been confirmed with the honorary D.Litt degree from the Vikramshila Hindi University. Professor Shinde has been teaching postgraduate courses in archaeology since 1982. In addition to being a recognized postgraduate teacher and research guide at Deccan College, deemed University Pune, Solapur, and Eötvös Loránd University of Sciences, Budapest, Hungary, he has also been conducting teaching for the postgraduate diploma courses at the Institute of Archaeology, Archaeological Survey of India since 1991. In addition to his teaching activities, Professor Shinde has supervised a vast number of MA and PhD research students. At present, 55 MA and PG MPhil students and 39 PhD scholars have completed successfully under his supervision. With several more currently receiving guidance and co-guidance from him, he has also provided guidance to no less than 15 visiting scholars from foreign countries. He is one of the India's prominent archaeologists who conducted the Rakhigadi excavations. Another most prominent personalities sharing space with us today on the dais is Professor Neerja Gupta ji. She is presently working as the Vice Chancellor of Sanchi University of Buddhist Indic Studies in Madhya Pradesh, India. She holds a doctoral degree in English. She has about 36 years of academic research and administrative experience. She is the chief editor of the Bharatiya Manyaprad, an international research journal published by the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. Professor Gupta is also well versed in 11 languages, which includes 2 foreign languages, Russian and Greek, and 9 Indian languages such as Hindi, Sanskrit, English, Gujarati, Marathi, Assamese, Urdu, Oriya, Pali, and Prakrit. Professor Gupta is nominated Professor Fellow at the Oxford University for lifetime to propagate Indology. She has written 22 books and has more than 60 publications that include research papers, journal articles, conference articles, books, chapters, books, reviews. Her major areas of interest and proficiency include literature of English, Sanskrit, Pali, Gujarati, and many more. She is also trained in classical dance, Kathak. 27 students have successfully completed their PhD under her guidance. As a distinguished academician and administrator, she plays a key role as designated of member of several distinguished boards and executive councils. She has completed several research projects funded by various national and international agencies. She was the principal director of the team constituted on Jammu and Kashmir as special region by Ministry of Home Affairs, and finding was substantially used towards the abrogation of Article of 370 in Jammu and Kashmir by Government of India. She has traveled extensively in India as well as visited 42 countries for academic purposes. As a researcher of international repute, she has varied research collaborations both within and outside country. She has participated over 400 national and international research-oriented conferences. As an outstanding researcher, she has delivered invited talks, keynotes, and speeches in many conferences. Some of the other key roles are as a member of the Inter-Religious Dialogue Committee constituted by the Revered Pope and spokesperson of the Citizen Amendment Act. Professor Gupta is the recipient of several prestigious awards. Bharat Kirtiman Padak in 2023 from the World Book of Records, London. Aaj Ka Karamveer Award in 2022. National Talent Search Award 2020, Bharat Manthan Award in 2020, Atal Bihari Vajpayee Rashtriya Sanman for contribution in diasporic studies 2017 by Indian Political Science Association, Shiksha Bharati Puraskar in 2011, Best Multiple President 2001 by Lions Club. She has been invited under Mission Education to visit Canadian state universities, Japan, Nepal, Mauritius, UK, and several East African and Arab countries as an education delegation from India. She has played an active role in disaster relief in Gujarat earthquake, Kashmir floods, Sri Lanka tsunami, and Uttarakhand flash floods. Her theme paper on G20 found a special place in the book mentioned by the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji in his Mann Ki Baat on 29 January 2023 on India, the Mother of Democracy. I thank all the distinguished scholars for sharing their time and being with us today. I look forward for their guidance, comments, and suggestions and give ICHR a ray ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our member secretary, Professor Umesh Asok Kadam, sir, is an expert of medieval Indian history. Is professor at Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. Has produced a number of scholars, research scholars, a number of books to his credit. Sir, it is indeed my privilege to introduce and invite rather our chief speaker of today's program, that is 51st Foundation Day of ICHR, Professor Vasant Shinde ji, to the audience. I'll just repeat one or two points because sir has extensively read his CV. His contributions to archaeology in India and abroad take the form of a large number of research papers, edited volumes, and other publications, comprising 35 plus books, both authored and edited, 250 plus research papers, a number of crucial elements of South Indian archaeology from hitherto unknown proto-historic cultural phases to models of urbanization in Mewar, Rajasthan, owe their discovery to him. And his most significant breakthrough research contribution includes first DNA analysis and craniofacial reconstruction of Harappan people. His Rakhigarhi excavation has enabled us for a paradigm shift from AIT to OIT, that is Aryan invasion theory, to origin in India theory. I would take the privilege to invite him for ICHR's 51st Foundation Day lecture entitled Genesis and Authors of Indian Knowledge System, with a special reference to Rakhigarhi. Professor Vasant Shinde, sir. PPT start.
So, namaste to all. Professor Raghvendra Tanwarji, the chairman of the ICHR, Sri S. Somnathji, so happy to meet Somnathji, the chairperson of the Indian Space Research Organization, Professor Nirja Gupta ji, Professor Umesh Kadam, my fellow the maybe members of council, honorable members, the staff of the ICHR, and friends and students. First, I would like to greet ICHR on this very important occasion. They are celebrating this ICHR Foundation Day, 51st Foundation Day, and I wish great success and future ahead for this particular organization. I am so happy to be part of this family. In fact, ICHR is a big family, and I am a part of this big family. So I am really privileged to be part of this. So friends, I would like to take a little more time. In fact, now I haven't given maybe half an hour, but I will take a little more time because I want to convey the message. In fact, that that we want to convey to the society, and that message is that India has contributed immensely to the history of the world, to the history of South Asia, and particularly in science and technology. Most of the basic science and technologies, they are born in fact in India, and a lot of things have been borrowed in fact by the world from India. And the work that we have done in fact at the site of Rakhigadi, it was a collaborative efforts, but that work has completely changed the perspective of Indian history. A lot of issues that we had in fact in Indian history, they have been taken care of by this scientific research that we have done at the site of Rakhigadi. Now, the first I would like to mention now this is a very famous sentence. The most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of history and knowledge system. This is precisely what the British has done in fact with us. When they came here, they were really very astonished to see the very strong and robust system that we had, particularly the education system that we had. And they realized that unless this particular system is destroyed, perhaps they will not be able to rule this country effectively. And that is how they impose on us the new education policy, in which we had to mostly do the homework, and we had to do only the reading only, and there was little scope for the thinking. So that is the kind of system that was imposed on us. But when we study the history, now we know that most of the knowledge system that we understand today, or which is being used in fact in major part of South Asia, now that has a long history, and that history goes back to the beginning of settled life in this particular part, that maybe around 7,000 BCE. So it begins in that particular stage, and then we have very strong evidence. Whatever I am speaking, it is based on the strong evidence. We have two kinds of sources that we use for understanding the source of our Indian history, and particularly the knowledge system that we have. One, of course, is the literary sources or the textual source, and a lot of scientists, a lot of maybe Sanskrit scholars and the historians are working on this particular aspect. And at the same time, we have also generated a lot of scientific archaeological data. So this particular source is very important, because if you want to convince the people, this is the source by which people get convinced. So that is the source that I'm going to speak about. So the beginning is around maybe 7,000 BCE, and we have the evidence to indicate a gradual growth in the technology, basic science and technology that was introduced. And by 2500 BCE, in the middle of the 3rd millennium BCE, this particular technology was fully matured, fully developed. And what is interesting part of this is that most of the technologies which were developed by our ancestors, that is so relevant for the society. Even today, we feel that that is a lot of people are using this particular technology even today, and a lot of people in South Asia, they are dependent on this particular knowledge system. So from that point of view, this is a very, very important subject knowledge. And I'm particularly happy that now the government has realized the importance of the traditional knowledge system or Indian knowledge system, or maybe you can say indigenous knowledge system. And now that has become a part of the education system in the country. And I'm sure that once it is fully implemented, I'm sure that we will be able to come out with some innovative maybe ideas in the world. And in a true sense, perhaps India will rule the whole world after this particular implementation. So the Harappans, I consider them as the founders of the Indian culture, because as I say that by 2500 BCE, most of the technologies were fully developed, and the Harappan people were responsible for that. So they are the people in fact who have laid the foundation of of India. We have studied this particular culture at the site of Rakhigarhi, and there are many more sites in Haryana. And let me tell you the important feature of Haryana, that it is here that we find the roots of the Indian culture, which are originated here, and they have spread in fact in different parts of South Asia. So the river, in fact, which is Saraswati River, was very, very important. And we do find large number of Harappan settlements located on the bank of river Saraswati. So I'll be speaking about that. But let me just give the glimpse. In fact, our history begins from almost 2 million years. The earliest stone tools discovered, that dated to around 20 lakhs to 2 million. And of course, there is a gradual growth, in fact, in the early Stone Age culture also. But we do not find much variation, in fact. If you study the Stone Age cultures all over the world, you find the same maybe technology used all over. The real change, in fact, happens only, these are some of the earliest tools, discovered in the Indian subcontinent. They are roughly 20 lakh years old tools discovered in the Indian subcontinent. And then, of course, as I mentioned that, 7000 BC is a very important stage in the culture of South Asia, and it is at this particular stage we see the evidence of developed life, in fact, settled life. And most of the developments have taken part, in fact, in the northwest part of the Indian subcontinent. Of course, we have the site of Mehergarh, which is at the Bolan Pass, which is in Pakistan today. And there are large number of sites in the Saraswati Basin, particularly in Haryana, which have produced the evidence of the early, in fact, beginning of the Harappan culture now, going back to 6000 BC or 5500 BC. And there is a gradual, in fact, very strong evidence about the gradual growth of this particular culture from 5500 to 2500 BC. So we have very well documented this particular evidence. This is the site, in fact. I don't know, many people may not have seen the archaeological site, but archaeological site, in fact, is mostly in the form of the mounds. And you can see here, in fact, in the left-hand side, a mound, which is a thick mound. In fact, there are roughly 15-meter deposit at this particular site. And these deposits contain the remains of different cultural periods in South Asia. And it is here, in fact, that we have first understood the growth of the culture in South Asia, the beginning pattern, which is indigenous, in fact, in this particular site. And then, of course, there is a growth happening at the site. We do have the evidence of the domestication of plant and animal, the wheat and barley. These were the crops which are grown first in this part. And also, a lot of animals also were domesticated, particularly cattle, sheep and goat, even dog. These were the animals which were domesticated. And we have found actual evidence of the actual bones of these animals, on the basis of which these animals have been identified. Also, we have very strong evidence about the, once, the settled life began, then we do find, a lot of developments happening in South Asia. And the earliest evidence of maybe, systematic burial custom began from the beginning of the settled life. And what we are seeing here, in fact, is the earliest, properly, buried human dead body in the habitation at the site of Mehergarh. And right from the beginning of this particular stage, people have believed in second life, because along with the dead bodies, we find their ornaments, their tools buried along with that. And that system continues, in the Harappan period, and even today also, a lot of us still believe that, there is a second life, and the genesis of that, of course, goes back to the Harappan times. Most of the, a lot of, basic technologies were developed for manufacturing various crafts, and we have the evidence of the development of various, maybe jewelry made of semi-precious stone, or even maybe even shell. And what is interesting that, that they have developed this, we have strong evidence of the manufacturing activity right from the early stage. But what is interesting is that, they have started developing long distance contact right from the beginning of cellular life, right from 7000 BCE. And we have some material in fact, which was used for making some ornaments coming from Karachi coast, which is roughly 1200 kilometers away from Mehergarh. And some material also is coming from even Oman. So they started crossing seas also, in the, right in the early stage. Also, when we study, we also notice that, in the early Harappan stage, there are 3 stages of the Harappan culture. One, of course, is the early Harappan stage, which is dated from 5500 to 2600 BC. That is a formative stage. In the second stage, we find the urbanization. That is the most important phase of the Harappan culture. And around 1900 BC, the culture starts declining because of the climatic condition. And the decline phase has survived up to 1500 or 1300 BCE. So these are the 3 different stages. In the early stage, what we notice are the different regional cultures coming up into existence. So we have recorded in fact a number of different cultures. In the previous map, you must have seen different cultures. And these cultures have been identified mainly on account of the painted ceramic. It varies in fact from culture to culture on account of the technology, on account of surface treatment, on account of maybe shapes and the various paintings on them. So on the basis of that, we have identified that. But in the next stage, we see the integration of these. So we always talk about the concept of nation. Maybe concept of empire, in fact, we always read that Mauryans were the first to develop empire, concept of empire in the Indian subcontinent. But I think this is the first example of the development of a nationhood. What the Harappans have done over such a large area, roughly 2.5 million square kilometer area, we find the integration of the Harappan culture. We find the standardization maintained impact on such a large area. So this is the earliest example anywhere in fact in the world of the creation of a nationhood. And this is, according to me, the most important concept, most important contribution of the Harappans. I think in the Rigvedic text, there's a mention of a Bharat Desh. I think that concept was brought in reality by the Harappans. And what is important here that when it comes to nationhood or empire, most of them are made by forceful means, by conquering maybe surrounding areas. But this is the example, in fact, in the whole of in the world history, that a nation is made on the basis of peaceful movement. In fact, the Harappans were peaceful, peace-loving people, and we always compare Harappans with the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians because they were the contemporaries of the Harappans. And when it comes, in fact, I think these 2 maps are very important. These maps and 2 river system, Indus and Saraswati. And let me tell you that when it comes to the identification of Saraswati, we have strong evidence, of course. We have strong evidence about literary evidence. We also have carried out a lot of scientific work. But the most important scientific work was done by ISRO, in fact. One of the scientists from ISRO, I think J.R. Sharma, he analyzed the satellite photography imagery, and he has reconstructed the whole course of the river Saraswati, right from its origin, which happens in fact at the foot of Shivaliks, and then it crisscrosses the various states. So that whole reconstruction is done very scientifically. So these 2 river systems are very, very, very important. And let me tell you that more than Indus, the Saraswati was very important for the Harappans because you find nearly 2/3 of the Harappan settlements located in this particular river system. the Harappans had contact, very strong contact with Mesopotamians, Egyptians. They also had very strong contact with Oman, with Bahrain, with Persian Gulf, and also with Mesopotamian Iraq. And we have this particular reconstruction is done on the basis of actual evidence that we have from different sites. We always compare Harappans with the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians. Given a choice, I will also say that I want to see Mesopotamian site or the Egyptian site because there are big structures like pyramids to see there. The Harappans have not created that, but that does not mean that Harappans were not capable. Perhaps if they had decided, they could have easily created these type of monuments because Harappans are considered to be the best civil engineers in the contemporary world. But they have not done that intentionally for two reasons. One is that Harappans had completely different administrative system. They were following some kind of a panchayat or democratic system, and we have strong evidence for that. Whereas in Mesopotamia and Egypt, they had the kingdom system, and all the developments happen in fact around the kingdom. Because of that, these type of monumental architecture were created by the Mesopotamians and Egyptians. The other reason is that Harappans were very practical people. They knew that they always care for the welfare of the common people, and they knew that this type of monumental architecture is not of any use to the common people. And the wealth that was coming, they were literally they were plundering the West through the trade. They were getting a lot of things from the West, and that wealth was used by the Harappans. For the welfare of the common people, they created those beautiful, well-planned cities, very hygienic cities for the common people. So the philosophy of the Harappans was different, and the philosophy of the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians was different. As far as the Egyptians are concerned, and of course, these are some of the monumental architecture that they have created. But what we also have the evidence in fact in Mesopotamia and Egypt, that there is evidence indicating that the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians were very aggressive people, and they used to carry out regular raids in fact on the surrounding or the neighboring countries, and they used to get involved in fact in the warfare. And the people who were defeated, in fact, they were used as slaves in fact for creating those monumental architecture like pyramids and ziggurats. We do not have that evidence. They also had very standing army also. So these are you can see here in fact that how the the captured people were used as slaves. There's a proper depiction of that. This is from Mesopotamia, and also Egypt also we have the same evidence we find. So because of that, the Mesopotamians and Egyptians were able to amass huge amount of wealth, and they have created this type of monument architecture. This is the army, in fact, this is found in one of the burials in one of the tombs. So this type of army was maintained by the Egyptians and the and the Mesopotamians. What the Harappans did, in fact, they were peace-loving people. In fact, you can see the yoga tradition that was introduced by the Harappans. Yoga science, even probably they also introduced Ayurveda also, because at the site of Kunal, one of the sites in Haryana, the botanists have identified some plants which are the medical plants, in fact. So probably they have also introduced even Ayurveda, and definitely we have a lot of images, lot of figurines, terracotta figurines in different yogic posture, indicating that this particular science was introduced by the Harappans. So that is one that is one important evidence of the peace-loving people. They also introduce the meditation also. There are some seals, in fact, on which we find this evidence of the meditation. So this is the evidence of peace-living people. At no Harappan site we have any evidence of either destruction of the site because of the warfare. We do not have large number of, maybe very few, maybe offensive or defensive equipments. Otherwise they have not really created that. So that indicates that Harappans were peace-living people. And right from the beginning, as I mentioned, that they had probably the democratic setup, because of which they could undertake this type of evidence. Now, as far as the knowledge system is concerned, I think now we have the evidence of the growth. I'll just give you a couple of examples only. I'm not going to take a lot of time because of the short of time. But one example, that we always have the idea about what is the Harappan town planning, how the cities look like. But the base of this pattern goes back to almost 5,500 or 6,000 BC. So the Harappans lived in a very modest structures like this. In fact, what you are seeing in fact here are the circular structures. So this is the beginning. In the next stage, can I enter the next one? Yeah, in the next stage, they started building rectangular structures. This is from the next level, and now you can see that introduction of typical Harappan bricks and also the typical Harappan material, equipment like the tandoor, etc. They were introduced by the Harappans. So this is the second stage. In the third stage, we see some kind of modern planning. This is properly documented, in the archaeological excavations. So this is third stage. Now we can see the proper maybe modern planning in a linear pattern. So there is a concept of street and structures on both sides, small street, lane, etc. So this comes into existence. And lastly, we find in the next stage we find full-fledged the city or the town planning. So this has grown gradually. This means that the development which was begun in fact was continued by the same people, in fact, by the same people of the same nature. So because of that, we see this particular evidence. So in the archaeological data, it is quite clear that most of the developments were done by the indigenous people, and these people were responsible, for various. I'll just give you a glimpse of the town planning. This is a typical example of how well-planned cities Harappans had. They are the fortification walls. The cities were divided either in 2 parts or 3 parts. So this is the perfect example of that. This is the nature of the fortifications. Now you will wonder that how the Harappans have built this type of. This is the utility monumental architecture useful for the society, and these type of architecture or this type of constructions were possible because of the panchayat system that these people had. Probably the entire community was involved in creating this type of monumental architecture, and because of that, this type of architecture have come into existence. Of course, you can see close-up of the fortification wall and maybe the gates on 4 sides. Next, please. You can see how well planned the cities were. We do not have this type of evidence at any of the Mesopotamian cities or Egyptian cities. So this is the contribution of the Harappans. In fact, Harappans or the Indians have taught the entire world, in fact, how to build modern and very well and clean cities. So this is the best example of that. We have not forgotten this Harappan tradition legacy. In fact, if you see the overall plan of the even big village or city in Haryana, you'll recall that that this is the plan of the Harappans. In fact, when we excavate at the site, we stayed there for 3 to 4 months. And whenever I used to get time, in fact, in the evening, I used to go around in the Rakikari village, and I used to get the feel that I'm moving in the Harappan village, because the width of the roads is exactly Harappan. Even the modern structure, modern house plan, is based on Harappan house plan. In fact, it is open in the middle, and maybe rooms on all sides. Even people are using the same kind of pots that the Harappans built, and this tandoor concept is very much there. By the way, chicken tandoor is the delicacy introduced by the Harappans. We have the evidence for that. The next important contribution, I would say, that they have taught the world, in fact, the modern construction method, what is called as the English bond. The English people were not aware about this technique till 14th century, but this was developed around 3000 BC. Even today, the whole world is following that. A brick wall, when it is constructed, one line of the brick is placed horizontal, next line is placed vertical. So that is how the brick wall is constructed. So that is called the English bond construction method. So that was introduced by the Harappans. They were the first pioneer, in fact, in the world. So I say that instead of English bond, it should be called as the Harappan bond, because that is the contribution of the Harappans. We do not have, we have the Harappan script, of course, but we do not know what exactly it is because we have not been able to decipher that script. We don't know what kind of sciences were developed by the Harappans. But one thing is clear, from the evidence, we can say that they had solid knowledge about the science, and probably they were good in the mathematics, because what we are seeing in fact here are the measuring instruments which were created by the Harappans, and they were used for during the construction purpose. So this is a very, very important evidence. So that shows that that Harappans were capable in fact of developing important science. So these are some of the remains in fact of the scale from different sites. The Harappans were pioneer in fact in building this type of maybe wells. They brought the clean water close to the settlement, and that is again a very important contribution. There are some sites where the Harappan wells are being used even today. So that is a relevance in fact. We can see that even in Haryana we have seen a lot of the sites. You will think that this is a modern bathroom, but this is the Harappans were again pioneer in introducing bathroom and toilet, and this is the evidence of that. This is the evidence from the site of Kalibangan, which was excavated by Professor B.B. Lal. And also, not only that they have developed this concept of bathroom, but they also developed those beautiful terracotta tiles. Most of the modern tiles, in fact, are based on this concept, which was developed by the Harappans. And we always feel that the concept of commode has come from the West, but you can see that the earliest evidence of commode anywhere in fact in the world. So this is again the concept that was introduced by the Harappans, by the Indians, and then it has traveled to different parts of the world. They had a very impeccable drainage system, the closed drainage and the open drainage. And closed drainage was supposed to the was attached to the toilet, and open drainage to the bathroom. They had the network. In fact, we have excavated number of sites, and we could excavate properly the nature of the drainage system that the Harappans built. In fact, in every household they had the toilet and bathroom concept, and they had the network of the drainage system. So that network was attached, in fact, to the main drainage line. Can you just go back? Yeah, you can see it, in fact, that this is the, sorry. I don't know, but there's a structure in fact. There's opening. So that is the opening of a main drainage line. So all the network was connected to the main drainage, the opening of which you can see here, and this was taken outside the city wall and emptied somewhere, making sure that there is no dirty water spread within the settlement. And no wonder because of that the Harappan people were so healthy. In fact, we have studied the pathology of the Harappan people at Rakhigarhi and other sites. And some Koreans were working with us. And at the end of the study, they were so disappointed. They said that we don't detect any major disease, in fact, prevalent in the Harappan people. So that shows the level of the cleanliness that the people have maintained. And of course, this is the part of the Rakhigarhi village. The whole concept is Harappan. But we are not learning from the history, in fact. The drainage line, in fact, is open in the street here. That is the problem. Also, that our government has to, initiate some programs like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. You can see, Harappans, they had, put the dustbins at regular intervals. These are some of the dustbins, they have constructed, along the main street, and also in the, inside the, settlement also. So that was, in our blood. And this particular concept was so strong, in fact, in Indian subcontinent. Then we always think that this is a structure. We read, in fact, in the textbook that this is perhaps the public bath used by the Harappans. But I consider this as the earliest model of a swimming pool found, in fact, in the citadel part. And what you are seeing, in fact, around this structure, there are a number of rooms. And in the modern swimming pool, we need this bathrooms around the swimming pool, because we take bath first there and then we enter the swimming pool. So that concept is found, in fact, that particular evidence is found here. And also you can see, in a small, inset picture, there's a well, in fact, close to this, close to this particular structure. So they were drawing water from these and periodically replacing the water from this particular structure. So this is also a very important structure that we have. One thing that what we need to, generally people ask what is the relevance of this study that we do, and one relevance that the whole world has learned from the Harappans is the trade strategy. Harappans did not have, from this map, from this map you can see that the most of the raw materials were outside the Harappan region. So they developed very good contact with the contemporary population. The Harappans had technology with them. So they started manufacturing, processing the raw materials in their, in their workshops, and they started supplying the finished goods to the same people from whom they were, acquiring the raw materials. That is how they started gaining so much, wealth. And then of course they realized that perhaps there's a lot of maybe green pasture in the towards the west. And then they started developing the maritime trade contact, the first in the world to develop maritime trade contact. The trade was developed, maritime trade was developed especially for carrying out the trade, and that was again was introduced by the Harappans. We have reconstructed the type of routes that the Harappans followed, in fact, for traveling towards the west. So they had a lot of maybe a couple of at least land routes that we have identified. They had also the sea routes, and they developed in fact proper infrastructure for undertaking the maritime trade. There are some sites in Gujarat, particularly Lothal, where the government of India is developing perhaps the largest maritime museum in fact in the world. And it is in fact in this background, backdrop. In fact, this is the structure which was excavated at the site of Lothal, and this structure has been identified as the earliest dockyard anywhere in the world, meant for building and repairing ships. Plus, this was also used as a port. So this is the kind of infrastructure that the Harappans have carried out. And of course, some even Indian Navy people have inspected this particular structure. And at the end, in fact, the only explanation that they gave that this structure could have been used only for dockyard purpose, because when they excavated by the side of the structure, they found a sloping platform, and that sloping platform is called wharf, and that is required in fact for sliding goods up and down. This type of structure is required, and that was found here. In fact, this is how the Lothal must have looked like when it was alive. Two types of ships were built by the Harappans. We have the replicas of them on the Harappan seals. One is the plank boat, which has a flat bottom, and the other one is the reed boat made of thick grass. Even in Mesopotamia and even today in Iraq, thick grass boats are made even today. And both the boats were for long distance trade, because you can see inside the boat there is a house, there's a cabin, and also there are birds. To locate maybe land, we need this type of birds on the ship or boat, and also we need cabin for maybe when we are traveling long distance. So this is a kind of ships and boats. In fact, they have developed. The Romans have not really taught us to build ship and boat. This is the earliest evidence of its kind. Other relevance in fact of the Harappan study, and let me come back about the that trade strategy that the Harappans developed. So that because of this particular strategy, that they had the technology with them, they process goods and supply goods on a large scale to the communities outside Harappan region, and that is how they gained a lot of prosperity. And that the wealth that they were generating, that was used for the development of the culture, from simple culture to civilization. That was possible. That I always give the example of Japan. In fact, Japan was completely destroyed. When I visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I also could not believe that Japan could have risen within 10 to 15 years. Within 15 years, Japan became a world economic power. And the strategy that was adopted by Japan was exactly the same as the Harappan strategy. Japan had technology with them. They did not have a lot of natural resources. They started importing a lot of natural resources from developing countries like India, China, and they started supplying finished goods to all of us. And that is how Japan could gain. So that is the relevance of the study that we do. And the other one, of course, we have the excellent evidence of water harvesting and water management. I will recommend that all of you should visit the city of Dholavira, which is now the World Heritage Site in the country. Now, this particular city, let me take a little more time to explain this because this is very important. For the planners, this is very important. The Harappans had to build this particular city here because they knew that it is a desert part. But this is the region in fact which is on the very important trade route, and they have to develop this particular city. And they knew that there is a dearth of water. So what they did in fact, they studied the geography and geology of the region first, and then they decided to develop this particular city between two small rivers. And in this in this region, whenever there is a rainfall, in the occasional rainfall, the rivers get flash floods. So what the Harappans did in fact, they put series of check dams on both the rivers, and they diverted the whole water inside the settlement. And inside the settlement, I think this is a picture which I took during the rainy season. And this is how the Harappans must have dammed both the rivers. First thing they did in fact, they created this storm water drainage system, which is very, very scientific and essential. So in case huge volume of water comes and it creates some danger to the settlement, this water system, this storm water system can take care of that. And then of course, inside they created, the city was divided into three parts. In each part, we see number of underground water reservoirs. So this is one of the reservoirs. This is another reservoirs. The earliest evidence of step well in Gujarat. Number of different kinds of and those tanks were connected to each other by underground water channel system, making sure that the tanks are filled in one after the other, and that is how the water was kept running in fact inside the settlement. So this is the underground channel system that was excavated. You can see the stones are eroded because of the flow of water. So this is the system that they had created. And also on the left hand side, you can see that at regular intervals there are air ducts, and air ducts are essential in fact even in the modern drainage system to prevent maybe blockage, or for cleaning purpose this type of air ducts are required. So that was again scientifically provided by the Harappans. I'll just flip through because I want to give some more time for understanding the Harappan people. So maybe the agriculture system that was introduced was unique by the Harappans. Then they created this type of jewelry. They made beads from semi-precious stone, and this particularly beads made of carnelian had much greater demand in the West. So they produced large amount of these in their workshops. We have at number of sites the evidence of manufacturing. We find their workshop. We find the beads in different stages of manufacture. That kind of evidence is found at number of sites. Even today, in fact, in Khambat region, people are making these replicas of the Harappan beads. And interestingly, they are using the same Harappan technology even today for making the beads. And they are doing roaring business, in fact, all over the world. So that is the relevance, in fact, of this particular study also. Also they made crafts of different various materials. They use shell for making shell bangles and also shell beads, and we have a lot of evidence of the manufacturing of that at sites. Harappans also developed some metallurgy. They started they introduced two important technologies. Both of them are being used even today. One is called the simple cold hardening technology. Even today that has a relevance. So, and that is one technology, and the other one, of course, some objects are made in fact in molds, cast in molds. So that complex technology was developed by the Harappans. They also developed bronze technology also. These are some of the objects made by the Harappans. This is one of the best examples of the bronze technology that was developed by the Harappans. We have a lot of evidence about the manufacturing of the copper objects at different sites, bronze objects. Even Harappans introduced for the first time, we have the earliest evidence of the cotton and textile dated back to 7000 BC. So this is again the contribution of the Indians. Probably they did this block printing, because when I visited Karachi Museum, I handled this this so-called priest king, And on the shawl-like garment, I could see some traces of color. Probably it was colored. So that kind of printing technology was developed by the Harappans. These are the platforms, circular platforms, where the indigo plant was crushed, and the color was collected in the middle. Even we have the evidence of jute, also wool. So these are the fabrics which were introduced by the Harappans. We also have the earliest evidence of domesticated silk from the Harappan level. We always thought that the silk has come from China. Maybe we have the earliest evidence of maybe wild variety of silk in China, but the domesticated variety is found in Indian subcontinent. We have carried out a lot of scientific work on that also. You can see a lot of objects which were made by the Harappans. A lot of same kind of objects are being made even today. So the technology that was introduced by the Harappans is so relevant. In fact, I gave once a lecture to Niti Aayog people, and I said that the water harvesting and the water management system that the Harappans introduced. I think we should introduce that system in Kutch part of Gujarat, in the desert part. The whole Gujarat will be green line, in fact, the Kutch part, because the technology that was introduced by the Harappans was simple but very effective, and it was introduced by the indigenous people. We don't need a lot of funding for that. We don't need foreign collaboration. So that is a relevance, in fact. This is how we can learn from our ancient even the modern this weighing system is derived from the weights that the Harappans developed. I mentioned about chicken tandoori. This is one very famous and important delicacy, in fact, introduced. Even Harappans introduced the typical Indian curry at the site of Farmana. In fact, we carried out the scientific studies on the pottery, and we found the traces of the Indian curry. The garlic, ginger, brinjal. So all the ingredients were found, in fact, in that. So we believe that the Indian curry was also introduced by the Harappans. Food processing was done, for the first time in the world, was done by the Harappans. They used these, perforated pots. We were talking today, in fact, about these pots. So these pots were used for making cheese and paneer. And we have actually, we have found the traces of, the milk product inside this, perforated jar. And we believe that, this was the product which was introduced by the Harappans. Maybe the world has learned from us later. You can see, Namaste tradition. The whole world has realized the importance of this Namaste tradition after pandemic. So that was the introduction. That is the contribution of the Indians. Then also you can see at the site of Mohenjo-daro, we have found this writing tablets. That indicates that the Harappans had proper education system, and this is the evidence of that. We also believe that the feeding bottle, the concept has come from the West, but we can see that the earliest evidence of feeding bottle found at the site of Kalibanga. So a lot of things were introduced by the Indians in the maybe around 5,000 years back. Next, please. So these are some of the concepts which were developed by the Indians. So how would that knowledge has survived? That is one question that. So India has a very strong tradition of oral tradition. So maybe from due to oral tradition, it was passed on from generation to generation. And when the earliest universities of the world, the Taxila and Nalanda, this is a picture from Nalanda, then it was given a formal education form, and it is here that the typical Indian knowledge system was taught, and people from different countries. The record suggests that maybe 40 countries students were coming to Indian subcontinent, and they were learning all this. So that is how this maybe it is passed on. Then I come the last part. Who are the people who have introduced this knowledge system? There are a lot of debate, in fact, on this particular system, particular issue. Some scholars say that the Harappans came from outside. When it was discovered, the Britishers were responsible for that. John Marshall he excavated these two sites, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. And the impression that they had given to the world, that we have come to India to rule, because Indians are backward, they are barbaric. and we want to civilize them. That is the impression that they gave. But when they discovered this very advanced civilization at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, then they had a great question mark with, in front of them, because in Europe also they did not have such an advanced civilization. So they said that, then they started saying that, okay, no problem, you have the evidence, but the people who built the civilization were not Indians. They came from the West. And that is how they, fostered the idea of the, Aryan invasion. They said that Aryans came from outside, and they, were responsible for most of the developments in Indian subcontinent. So that was the, important, message, in fact, British are given. And we have been following for last maybe 75 years, we are following the same kind of, history. Nobody tried to generate scientific evidence to understand the Harappan people. Who are the Harappan people? And the only way by which we can understand about the people was to get their DNA. And it is very difficult because the condition is very adverse. The soil is acidic, which is not good for the, for the preservation. Even the climate is not good for the preservation. We tried that, in fact, in 2006, I started excavating the site of Farmana, which is close to the site of Rakhigadi. And we tried there, but we miserably failed there, because we were not ready for this, what is known as the archaeogenetic research. That time we were not ready for that. But later, we came in contact with the Harvard and the Korean scientists, and they suggested some change, in fact, in the methodology that we adopted. So they said that, you have to take proper precaution. This is the burial, in fact, that we excavated, burial ground, in fact, we excavated at this Farmana, where we excavated nearly 70 burials at one and the same time. We kept them open for almost 2 months, because we thought people should come and see them, so that, any misunderstanding they have, that can be eliminated. But then at the end, we started, looking for DNA. And whatever DNA was there, perhaps that was lost. We could not find there anything. But, one criticism that is there, in fact, when I published this paper in 2019, the first criticism came was that this is a politically oriented research. In order to, maybe please the present government, this particular, research was published. But we started in 2006. Suppose we had succeeded that time, we had got, DNA that time, we could have published that maybe in 2010, 11, and the results would have been the same. So that is, it has no substance. In fact, some people, have the habit of making, this type of comments. So precaution, in fact, which we are not taken, in fact, at the site of Farmana. Now we started taking this type of precautions. We use this PPE kit, because, the modern DNA can get into ancient DNA easily when we are excavating. And we took this precaution. We use this PPE kit. We also use, separate excavation tools for separate burials. We targeted one burial at a time. We just, immediately we documented that, and we lifted the samples and sent to the laboratory. And that is how, because of that, we succeeded. But when we started analyzing the data that we found, then we found the traces of East Asian people in that. And there was no way, because the Harappans had never no contact with East Asia at all. So how that has come, in fact, in this? And ultimately we realized that one of our students was from Korea, and he was a part of the excavation team excavating burials. So in spite of all these precautions, this modern DNA got into that. So how sensitive the DNA is. So all the the excavation was done, in fact, by taking this proper precaution. We did a lot of sampling. We took proper care, in fact, immediately after the each and every excavation of a burial, we sifted, lifted the samples. This is the kind of burials that we find. We can make a lot of inference on the basis of the difference in material culture in each burial about the social economic status of the person. And apart from that, we also made a lot of the sampling for DNA research. So the samples were sent to our lab in Deccan College. Same precaution was taken for cleaning the samples there. So this is the kind of scientific research that we carried out from these skeletal remains. I think we have got so much data. We can talk today very confidently about the health of the people, about the diet of the people, the percentage of plant food, percentage of animal food in the diet, everything can be reconstructed now because of the scientific studies that we undertook here. So we excavated nearly 62 burials at the site of Rakhigadi. We examined all the burials. We did not find DNA in 61 burials. And this was the last burial that we had excavated. And this is the burial of a 35-year Harappan woman. She was very beautiful because she has very sharp features. And this woman, in fact, came to our rescue. Finally, we found very authentic and strong DNA in this particular woman. So we always believe that we had lady luck, in fact. So this is a lady luck for us. So we found authentic DNA in this. Now, the other comment that is, prevalent, in fact, is that how we can, on the basis of one DNA, we can generalize. But DNA is like those who understand the population genomics. They know that even one DNA is very important because it is like testing rice. Whether rice is cooked or not, you pick up one grain, it is like that. So even if you have 100 samples, the results would have been the same. So even though we have DNA from one scattering, it is very, very important. So our strategy was that the whole research was conducted by the Indian scientists. The excavation was done by the Indians. The sampling was done by the Indians. The DNA was extracted by Indians. The sequencing was done, and we were ready, in fact, for the publication in around 2015. But then I realized that suppose we publish, because this is the first time this type of research is done, in fact, in India. So perhaps the European scientists or the Americans may not digest this, and they will always try to find some fault in our research. So what we did, in fact, we did 3 libraries of the samples. And one, of course, we analyzed one sample. One we sent to Koreans. The Seoul National University has one of the finest departments of forensic sciences. So we sent one sample to them and one sample to Harvard University, Harvard Medical School, which has got the biggest ancient DNA lab in the world. And there, in fact, 16 scientists from 16 different countries, they worked on the sample here on this. So what we told them that, you don't have to carry out the analysis. We have done that. Only you have to do cross-checking for us. And after we got the cross-checking from them, then only we published this report. And we included them as co-authors also. And as a result of that, you can see that, ICHR 14. There is an international conference on genomics, a big organization on genomic science in the world. And they had organized their meeting in China in November 2019. And they had identified 9 breakthrough researches in the world. And the Rakhigadi research was on top of that. And as a recognition, in fact, they have given this memento to us. So this means that the entire scientific community has accepted our research. And this is a very, very important. So what this particular research indicates? Say around maybe we have studied the samples from the Harappan levels, but we have used the genetic chronology, in fact, to trace its origin of this particular genetic history. And the roots are going back to 12,000 years, 10,000 BCE. So it so happened, in fact, around 10,000 BCE, there were hunter-gatherers somewhere, in fact, on the border of Afghanistan and Iran. So they split into 2 groups. One group came to South Asia, and one group went to Iran. The one which went to Iran, they got mixed up with the Anatolian farmers. And the Indians, the one which came to India, their genes started getting mutated. And it became a distinct South Asian genes, what we call as the ancient ancestral South Asians. So that is the kind of gene, in fact, they developed. And that was completely different from the Iranian genes, different from the, these steppe genes. So there was no trace of, their genes, in fact, present in the Harappan population. And, that the genes which are mutated maybe, 10,000 BCE, the same genes continue in the Harappan people. And also the same genes, in fact, have come, in fact, in most of the South Asian population. There's a strong indication of that. So what we did, in fact, we also analyzed I'm not, no, these Harappan genes are spread, in fact, major part of maybe Iran and also in Central Asia. Why we say that, that we were, we Indians, first began to go out, and then, people started coming from that side. So those who believe that, the Aryans came outside, that is not right. In fact, those who believe that there were Aryans, we don't believe, of course. Then perhaps Indians were Aryans, and they were going out, and then, reciprocal movement started after that only. So we find, these Harappan genes present, in fact, in major part of, Central Asia and also in Iran. And also, I'm not going to explain now, but these are the two sites, which we, sorry, can you go back? I don't know whether you can see, but there is a site called Gonur in Turkmenistan, and there is a site called Shari Sukta in Iran. So these two sites were excavated. They are contributed to the Harappans. Sorry. They found a lot of Harappan data there, indicating contact with the Harappans. We analyzed the samples. They had, these human skeletal remains samples from them, and what we found that we found the Harappan genes present in them, in their samples, but not their genes present in the Harappan samples. So that is a strong indication that Harappans first began to go out. They started mixing with them, and people started coming after that. So that is the kind of evidence we are getting, very scientific evidence that we have. And then, of course, we also analyze the modern samples, 3,500 modern samples from different parts of South Asia, from Afghanistan to up to Myanmar, and from Andaman Nicobar to Ladakh, Kashmir. And we had collected samples from different linguistic groups, different religious groups. All the 140 groups were represented. And in all of these people, we found a very strong indication of the presence of the Harappan genes, more than 25 to 30% Harappan genes. And then, of course, rest are all mixed, because right from the beginning, we were, traveling to different parts of the, maybe world. So a lot of mixing was happening. That mixing was quite, very well reflected in the archaeological data. That, mixing is also reflected in fact in the genetic data also. So most of us, from Andaman Nicobar to, Ladakh and Kashmir, and from Bengal to Afghanistan, most of us have more than 25 to 30% Harappan genes. So when it is more than 25%, that means we are descendants from of that particular group. So we are all descendants of the Harappans. In fact, basically I come from Sindh region. In fact, maybe from the Harappan region. But in my, my DNA was also done. In my DNA, maybe there's a lot of maybe even Greek and Roman genes also present, because I come from the coastal part of Maharashtra, and the coastal part had a lot of contact with Greek and the Roman Empire also. So that is how the mixing happens. But most of us are the descendants of the Harappans. So this is very, very important that when I revealed this, and when I think Mohan Bhagwatji read this somewhere, then he started spreading the word that why are we fighting? All of us, in fact, people of different linguistic groups, we are the same maybe blood group. So why to fight? In fact, this is a very important message that they have conveyed. Started spreading, in fact, gradually. But I will just tell you, I will not explain, but it happened, in fact, in the northwest part of the Indian subcontinent, the beginning of the, Harappan, Indian genes. Then, maybe next stage, maybe in the mid-Ganga basin, where we have the second, oldest evidence dated to around 6,000, 6,500 BC. Third oldest comes from the Mewar region of Rajasthan. Gradually, people have started moving in this, and then around 3,000 BC in rest of the Indian subcontinent. So this is how the, movement has happened. And this movement is very well documented, in fact, in the archaeological data also. We have studied, some, contemporary sites of the subsequent period in different parts. And we did find that, that this is how the, the dispersal must have happened in South India, in, South Asia rather. So most of the people, except of course the Tibeto-Burman, most of the people, in fact, are the descendants of the Harappans. And then you will wonder, in fact, how come that there is so much diversity in the complexion of the people in South Asia. So diversity has nothing to do with the genes at all. The diversity happens because of the other factors like geographical factors, climatic factors, food habit, and how much mixing was happening with different people. For example, people southern part of maybe Maharashtra, they are more mixing with the Southeast Asian population and the even African population, whereas people from this part, from the northern part of the country, there is more mixing with the Iranians, Central Asian. Because of that, people look different. Otherwise, all of us have the same genes. So the Aryan and Dravidian, this is all in artificially created divide in fact within the country. It has no scientific base at all. And then last part, of course, how the Harappan people look like. I'm not going to take much time here, but we need complete data for this. This is again done for the first time. We had no idea in fact how people look like. So we have done in fact for these two, one male and one female. We have done now maybe for 10 individuals. So what is required in fact for this? We have developed program, but in that program we have to feed two important sets of data. One is that the matrix data, the measurements of the bone that we did in fact when we were excavating, and the inner anatomy is very important. So that was generated through this CT scanning of the samples, and then of course it was fed in the computer. And gradually, in fact, it was reconstructed. This is the first phase of the reconstruction of the facial feature, which is so expensive, but we have done this. And you can see that even in this data also, the upper one is the 19-year-old Harappan boy, and the modern modern Haryana boy, they look exactly same. And in the lower, you have around 35 to 40 years Harappan woman, and you can see the modern woman. They look exactly same. So in all the three data that we have, archaeological, genetic, and the craniofacial or the 3D reconstruction, there is an indication of the continuity from earliest time till modern time, and that settles in fact all these so-called issues in Indian history, particularly the Aryan issues. So we did not talk about this issue at all, and that is buried forever. So this is what we have done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your very enlightening, interesting, and thought-provoking lecture. And most importantly, for excavating Rakhigadi, as this excavation has enabled us for a paradigm shift, as I said, towards OIT, Origin in India theory, from AIT, Aryan Invasion theory. That is towards drawing a conclusion that Indians were Aryans. ICHR परिवार आह्लादित है अपने मध्य मातृशक्ति की प्रतीक प्रोफेसर नीरजा अरुण गुप्ता जी को पाकर। आप सांची बौद्ध भारतीय अध्ययन विश्वविद्यालय मध्य प्रदेश की कुलपति हैं, भारतीय मान्य प्रद की मुख्य संपादक हैं। उन कम या शायद मुट्ठी भर अकादमिशियंस में से एक हैं जिन्हें 3 विदेशी इंग्लिश, रशियन और ग्रीक के अलावा 8 भारतीय भाषाओं का ज्ञान है। ऑक्सफोर्ड विश्वविद्यालय में आप आजीवन नामित प्रोफेसर फेलो हैं भारतीय विद्या की, भारत विद्या की, इंडोलॉजी की। 22 पुस्तकें, 60 अन्य प्रकाशन और 400 से अधिक राष्ट्रीय अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठियों में सहभाग आपके अकादमिक मानबिंदु हैं। सीएए और सिटीजनशिप अमेंडमेंट एक्ट और आर्टिकल 370 जैसे मुद्दों पर जितनी गठित प्रभावी समितियां थीं, आप उसकी सक्रिय सदस्य रही हैं। दर्जनों पुरस्कार हैं, और जिस एक बिंदु के बाद मैं आपको आमंत्रित करना चाहूँगा वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। शायद जो अकादमिक जगत है देश का, उसमें कम लोगों की ऐसी सक्रियता रहती हो। गुजरात भूकंप की बात हो, कश्मीर और उत्तराखंड की बाढ़ की बात हो, श्रीलंका के सुनामी की बात हो, उस समय के आपदा राहत में आपने अत्यधिक सक्रिय कार्य किया, जो अकादमिक जगत में एक आपको विशिष्ट स्थान प्रदान करता है। मैं एक काव्य अभिव्यक्ति के साथ आपको आमंत्रित करता हूँ कि इस पथ का उद्देश्य नहीं है श्रांत भवन में टिक रहना, किंतु पहुंचना उस सीमा तक जिसके आगे राह नहीं। प्रोफेसर नीरजा अरुण गुप्ता जी।
Namaste, Sadar Vandan. On this auspicious occasion of the 51st Foundation Day of ICHR, और हमारे यहाँ कहते हैं 51 शुभांक होता है, तो इस शुभांक के साथ with a new prospect for this historical research after this wonderful path-breaking presentation of Professor Shinde, I am speechless. In the presence of the chair, the dynamic chair, Professor Raghavendra Tamarji, the chief guest of the day, आदरणीय सर जी, मैं बोल रही हूँ एस सोमनाथ जी, प्रोफेसर शिंदे जी, उमेश कदम जी, ओम जी उपाध्याय. Actually it's a family. ICHR has become a family because I have been working closely with ICHR, and it's a pleasure to work for the new aspects, for the new perspectives, with the new intention. And here I stand with the burden of history. And when I say the burden of history, I mean to say it in Hindi, क्योंकि हम जिसे इतिहास कहते हैं वो अंग्रेज़ी की हिस्ट्री नहीं है. अंग्रेज़ी जो हिस्ट्री की बात कर रहे हैं वो कभी हिज स्टोरी और हर स्टोरी में लगे रह जाते हैं, और हम महाभारत को भी इतिहास कहते हैं, जो हुआ नहीं था नहीं, जो जैसा हुआ. That is how our journey has been always. And when Kalidas says Puranamittyev na sadhu sarvam na chapi kavyam navmitya vadyam, वो एक्चुअली इतिहासकारों को ही लक्ष्य करके कह रहा है, और मैं इसीलिए हिंदी चूज़ कर रही हूँ क्योंकि मुझे इतिहास पे कुछ बोलना है. जब हम पीछे मुड़ के देखते हैं तो इतिहास अपना एक बर्डन लेकर चलता है, और वो बर्डन ना सिर्फ एक छोटे से समूह या शिक्षावदों पे रहता है, वो पूरी संस्कृति पे आ जाता है, पूरे समाज पे आ जाता है. और हम अभी सर ने जिस तरह से एक जर्नी जैसे हमारी आंखों के सामने गुजार दी, और मैं ये सोच रही हूँ कि वाई वी आर अपोलोजेटिक. हम इतने अपोलोजेटिक क्यों हैं कि हमें प्रमाणों के बाद प्रमाण चाहिए, और कोई भी प्रमाण हमें शांत नहीं करता. When our young generation, they put questions, they ask for the evidences, they ask for the proofs. We have loads of scriptures, but when we show them the scriptures, we keep mum because we still try to find out the endorsement from the West. And it has been just proved that West has no grounds. West has actually no way to prove what was already there in this whole society. तो इतिहास बेसिकली एक ऐसा पर्सपेक्टिव है जिससे आप भाग भी नहीं सकते, उससे श्रेयस्कर नहीं है भागना, लेकिन वो संस्कृतियों को जोड़ने वाला इतना बड़ा एक सूत्र भी नहीं है. हम इतिहास को वर्टिकल या हॉरिजॉन्टल दोनों तरह से पढ़ सकते हैं. जो पश्चिम में मॉडर्न है वो हमारा मॉडर्न नहीं है. पश्चिम का मॉडर्न पीरियोडिक है, और उनकी मॉडर्न एज ख़त्म हो जाती है, फिर पोस्ट मॉडर्न, फिर पोस्ट मॉडर्न चलती है. जबकि हमारा मॉडर्न एक सनातन है, न्यू है, हमेशा आगे चलने वाला एक ऐसी दृष्टि का प्रतिपाद करता है जो हमेशा मॉडर्न बना रहता है. छोटा सा एग्जाम्पल है, आप एक उद्यान में क्या देखकर खुश होते हैं? एक फूल देखकर. और वो फूल जब तक उस जड़ से लगा रहता है वो खिलता है, वो अगर मुरझाता है तो भी पत्ती पत्ती मुरझाता है, मगर वो सड़ता नहीं है. क्यों? क्योंकि वो रूट से जुड़ा हुआ है. बट द मोमेंट वी प्लक इट आउट एंड वी ट्राई टू प्लांट इट इन अ वाइस एंड देन वी ट्राई टू प्रिजर्व इट विद सो मेनी अदर थिंग्स, वो 2 नहीं तो 3 दिन में सड़ जाता है. Our modernity is rooted, and that is why we are modern and we are Sanatan. अगर हम रूट से ना जुड़े हों, जिसकी इतनी गहरी जड़ें हैं, तो हम भी उन्हीं परंपराओं में फिर पोस्ट मॉडर्न और पोस्ट मॉडर्न इन सब थियोरेटिक्स में जाके उलझ जाएंगे. लेकिन मेरे प्रश्न थोड़े डिफरेंट हैं. मेरे प्रश्न है कि हम एक इंटीग्रेटेड सोसाइटी हैं. जब हम इंटीग्रेटेड सोसाइटी हैं तो अगर मैं एक काव्यशास्त्री की तरह से नाट्यशास्त्र की बात करती हूँ तो वो नाट्यशास्त्र इज़ नॉट अ बुक ऑफ एस्थेटिक्स. Natya Shastra is out and out a book of medical sciences, civil engineering and sound engineering. Aesthetics is a byproduct. जब आर्यभट्ट अग्निहोत्र की बात कर रहे हैं तो वो पाई की वैल्यू बोल जाते हैं, बट ईच एंड एवरीथिंग इज छंद एंड काव्य. सो हाउ कैन वी बी अवे फ्रॉम द पोइट्री, फ्रॉम द म्यूजिक, फ्रॉम द साउंड्स, फ्रॉम द एटम्स. एंड अभी सर ने जेरोम्स की बात की. सर, हम 5 तत्वों की बात करते हैं. हमारे सामने इतने बड़े प्रश्न आ जाते हैं कि ये 5 पांडव कैसे उत्पन्न हुए. वेल, देयर आर 5 एलिमेंट्स. व्हाट वी नो इज ओनली द प्रोडक्ट ऑफ द बॉडी. खाली शरीर से जन्मा हुआ ही जन्म नहीं है. महाभारत बहुत क्लियर कहता है, वायु पुत्र है, अग्नि पुत्र है, आकाश पुत्र है, जल पुत्र है, गंगा पुत्र है. सो इफ वी हैव नॉट डिकोडेड द प्रोसेस ऑफ द बर्थ with different elements which may not be same as the biogenetic, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. We have to go back. We have to go back to the sources and try to find out कि वो सभ्यता जिसने पहला काव्य दिया, पहला पद्म दिया, पहला गद्य दिया, पहली एस्ट्रोफिजिक्स दी, पहली इंजीनियरिंग दी, पहली चिकित्सा शास्त्र दिया, पहला व्याकरण दिया, वो पूरी सभ्यता क्या अपने साथ एक इतिहास बोध लेकर नहीं चल रही होगी. एंड व्हेन वी टॉक ऑफ ऑल दीज थिंग्स, दीज आर नॉट सेपरेट. These are all the integrated sources, and that is how the Shruti parampara, sir ने बिल्कुल ठीक कहा कि oral tradition. You see, today if you go back to the youngsters, मुझे खुशी है आज बहुत youngsters हैं यहाँ. आप पूछिए सर, उन्होंने YouTube भी देखना बंद कर दिया है, वो वापस से podcast पे आ गए हैं. So we are going back to the Shruti parampara again. We just want to listen and memorize. So it's very scientific that we have the lineage of Shruti, Smriti, Mahakavya, Mahabhashya, and then Lekhan, Chintan, Manan, Pathan and Vachan. So we have the wholesome traditions of history. In Vishnu Puran, in the 2nd chapter, they narrate a country. The country which starts with Meru and Sumeru and it ends at the ocean. Now what is Meru and Sumeru? Then they explain that Meru and Sumeru is a place where Devatas live. And what is that? That the 6 months there is night and 6 months there is day. Today we can easily relate it with the North Pole. That well, it's a darker phase and the phase of the sunlight. The thing is, we don't have to go literally to our sources. But our generations were intelligent enough to coin the impressions in between, to coin the hints in between. We don't have to look towards West for each and everything because they have only one system of validation, and that is Pratyaksh Praman. Only one Praman is not enough for us. For us, शब्द भी प्रमाण है, अनुमान भी प्रमाण है, संभव भी प्रमाण है, ऐतिह्य भी प्रमाण है. And when we have so many pramanas, then we have a stronger validation system than the pratyaksh praman. So जब हम छोटे में एक जो मैंने जहाँ से बात शुरू की, अपोलोजेटिक हो जाते हैं, हम मान ही लेते हैं कि हम पिछड़े हैं. बिकॉज जैसा कहा जाता है कि गुलामी की जंजीरें तो आप आसानी से काट देते हैं, लेकिन उसके निशान मिटाते हुए बहुत समय लग जाता है. वो जो गहरी घाई पड़ जाती है, उस घाई को आपको बड़ा रगड़ना पड़ता है. वी आर इन दैट फेज. Fortunately, we are at the threshold of 2 important things. One is Amrit Kal and one is G20. G20, I think we have already lost how many months? I think 6-7 months. And we are left with only 4-5 months now because it's only up to September. This is the best time to showcase Bharat. And I would say India is changing because India is becoming Bharat and Indians are becoming Bharatiya. This is the time we can really showcase India in all its glamour, in all its glory, with all its vaibhav. Just few words about Amrit Kal and then I'll cease. What is Amrit Kal? Amrit Kal in 100 ank is the last 25. It leads to Amrit. because Shatayu, Shat is the ultimate. So we have started our journey towards Amrit. That is why, after completing 75 years, we have now entered into Amrit Kal. And if you remember, last year when our Honorable Prime Minister went to Thailand, he presented a white horse to the head of the state. The white horse is very symbolic. It's not peace. It's basically the symbol of a Chakravarti Raja. And when we say Chakravarti Raja, it's not हमारे यहाँ तो ट्रेडिशन ही नहीं है कि जो सम्राट है जिसने बड़े योद्धा बन के दुनिया जीती हो उसको पूजा जाए. हम तो फ़कीरों को जीतते हैं, फ़कीरों को पूजते हैं जिसने पूरा त्याग कर दिया हो. तो when we go there with the white horse, that means we are extending our knowledge traditions to you, which is already there. So आज खास करके when so many manufactured toolkits are there, biased narratives are there, when our youth is at so much of confusion, what is right, what is wrong, because unfortunately we all are product of that education system which has not taught us to feel confident or to feel good about us. So then our responsibility increases. And at that threshold, if we can really come out with something which is more genuine in the form of research, and the last word, इतिहास सरकारों का विषय नहीं है, इतिहास समाजों का विषय है. यहाँ वंशावलियों में राजघराने चलते हैं. If we can live to that tradition, I think this Foundation Day will have its own meaning. Sir, I am honored. I am really touched for this kind invitation. You made it possible for me to share the dais with such luminary people. Thank you so much for giving me this chance.
Thank you so much. Thank you. In fact, we have been taught history with the colonizer's point of view, the history of inferior people being conquered, fighting each other, cruel, barbaric, and whatnot. In fact, the origin of Bharatiya civilization and history shouldn't be defined by wars, exploitations, and poor people, and all that. In contrary, Bharatiya people were tech savvy, making scientific contributions to the world, advancing some other things before anybody else, exporting knowledge to the world. Why these things were not talked about history? We are fortunate enough to have our chief guest, Sri Sridhar Panikkar Somanathji, who is chairman ISRO, with whom our honorable member secretary sir is signing an MOU on science, ancient science and technology of India, of Bharat. I am inviting, sir, with due respect, honorable chairman ISRO, Professor Sri Somanathji, for his address.
Good evening, all of you. Professor Neeraj Gupta ji, Professor Raghuvir Tanwar ji, and the 51st Foundation Day speaker, Professor Vasan Shinde ji, Professor Umesh Ashok Kadam ji. My greetings to each one of you for this, on this occasion of the 51st Foundation Day of Indian Council of Historical Research. And you may wonder why I am here. Being from space and science and technology, and coming here on a program where history is being discussed. Of course, I am a student of history. I have been all the time, reading quite a well on this topic, as a lot of interest on this, not only related to the history of technology, but also the history of the people, as just now been mentioned. And many times fascinated by the stories of various nature, the various type of representation of those facts that has gone into our minds, taken away us from the roots which should have been bounding us to the soil that we are here. I think these are coming back. I think we are seeing indications of that coming back. Even in today's wonderful lecture, we could see the connection that you have so much with the roots and also with this nation. I think this is something that we need to re-establish ourselves. And two things I understood from today's lecture by Professor Shinde is, one, that technology is so important. And the mastery of the technology is so important for a nation to prosper. And the second is that you need to be very good at trade and commerce. It's not enough that you have all the technology with you, that you need to find ways by which you can reach it to the larger extent of the humanity for us to prosper. I think these two capabilities that if we have, there is no way a nation can really be behind. So in terms of the history of this nation, we know that we should not be taken away of our confidence by telling that it is all done somewhere else and brought in here. I think that narrative is changing now, and we are coming to realize that we have been such an ancient nation over so many thousands of years back, created all those technologies that were possible at that point in time by the mind of the human mind, and they were able to create and do things for the benefit of the society. I think this has been very well evidenced and explained here, and to me, I have certain amount of understanding about those domains which I work, especially in the domain of science and technology, engineering, chemistry, biology, medical, and all these domains. I think the Indians have done at that point in time, those so-called the prehistoric people of our nation has actually created those knowledges which percolated down through our generations, and we call it that our Indic knowledge or our roots. I think these are being discovered again and again and again. We people, when we were studying engineering, we were astounded by the scale of metallurgical and chemical knowledge that existed in this country. For example, we know about the melting of zinc. I think possibly many of you may not be knowing, melting of the zinc is one of the most complex processes that ever have been done. Many of the Europeans and at that time were not able to melt zinc out of those the ores. And the only process that was discovered was only in India. And this was the very peculiar process which was never even disclosed to others. And they were forced to come to this part of the nation to collect zinc from us, because zinc is so much an important element in the alloying of various steel and various other materials, including precious metals. So the technology of melting, purifying materials, metals, especially those metals we say suthalokas, the gold, the silver, the copper, and the iron. I think all these were actually being mastered at this point in time in this nation. And the entire metallurgy of mixing metals and creating a different alloy of various properties for various specific activities were also discovered at that time. Then the next domain which I am connected is, of course, astronomy. I think all of you know that we deal with movement of sun, moon, and the planets, of course, of satellites and rockets as well. But then on this, the type of knowledge and awareness created at that point in time by sheer observations and calculations that were done is still astounding to understand. That if you go through the Surya Samhita, you will realize that the entire planetary system definitions were reasonably clear at that, though as already been told by Professor Dheeraj Gupta, the way in which this is explained is something which is not that straightforward. I think this is one of the issues that we have been facing to understand or decipher how this has been explained there. For example, the Earth is a sphere. You know that it has been discovered or realized much later by the Europeans, but actually the knowledge of that, the fact that the Earth is a sphere is well existed here many thousands of years back, and it's very, very clear today to us. Even the sun is a center of the universe, or the universe that we know around us is in fact known to us very well. So if you really go through the scientific understanding of the climate, the weather, the air, the water cycle, the living nature of the human, the earth itself, all of this was well understood at that point in time. But then later, what happened to us? I think this is a question that we have all been trying to understand. If you were such a knowledgeable society, why it didn't exist? Why it didn't thrive on it? Why it got destroyed? Why somewhere else it got developed? I think these are questions which need to be addressed and understood. And an understanding of these transitions that take place in the history is very important warning to the generation that we live here. I think we are seeing this cycle of changes, and if we don't prepare ourselves for understanding this, we will not be long lasting. I think this is the most important aspect of learning history for people like us who are dealing with science and technology. If you look at the medieval India as well, we will see we have been talking about the ancient India, but when you look at the medieval India also, we can see these traditions were continuing to remain in this nation. I think they were taken away in some manner to the other part of the world, but they were retained in some manner. And this can be seen that, especially in the domain of astronomy, we can see that there is significant amount of growth happening. Also in the domain of mathematics, for example, mathematics was one of the most flourishing scientific topic that was discussed way down to maybe in 1600 AD. Even up to that, the traditions of mathematics remained here. Even in the chemistry, I think we can see the traditions continuing much later in terms of synthesizing chemicals, even gunpowder, using minerals for various activities, coloring of materials and systems, creating soaps, paper, cosmetics. I think all these chemistry activities we could see happening here, even at that point in time. And of course, in many other areas, for example, metallurgy did not survive for long. I think we can see that it actually diminished over a period of time, possibly around thousands of years. The activities in metallurgy somewhat came down, and later it came back only in Europe. It didn't thrive here for sufficiently long time. Even in the knowledge that existed in astronomy also went down, because it were again created only in pockets, and most of the knowledge that was created till then actually traveled through the Europe by the Arabic people, and they were deposited there for thousands of years, later to be discovered and found out of it to create, as we know, the modern story of the cosmology as we know today. Of course, my topic of discussion was not really into the old thing, but I wanted to talk about what we do today in space technology. I think all of you know that the scientific institutions that were created in India in various domains. In DST, we know that CSIR labs, the Department of Space, the Department of Atomic Energy, and many others came into existence post-India, and we were working on the technology domains. And today, India, I am very proud to say that we are one of the leading spacefaring nation. I think this statement is just not a simple statement. In 1960 years back, when we started the space science and technology domains in this country, there were people doubting us that whether Indians will ever be able to do these type of things. And even when just few years back, when I went to Europe and we are discussing with not the space agency people, but normal, ordinary people there, oh, you are from space agency, you build rockets, you have the ability to build them in India? Are you importing those items from somewhere and then assembling them and launching in India? This was a type of the attitude that they have. Even for people who are well educated in Europe, don't think that everybody knows that we have a space program. Really, the world doesn't really know. Only very selected people only know that India has a space program of our own. So I can talk about this possibly if you come from other scientific domains, you will realize that it is only known to very select class of people in the world. But the fact remains that today the space program in India is one created out of our own knowledge and skill. Of course, we got help from various people, in Russians, Americans, Europeans helped us in the early part of it. But today we have reached a level that we can do things on our own. It is so in the case of other scientific domains as well, for example, atomic energy and other scientific areas as well. But there is a lot of ground still to be captured. I think all of us realize that in science and technology domain, we have still a long way to go. I think this is the understanding that we have in the government. And we have to become a technology savvy nation. And the only way the growth is possible by creating our own skills, original ideas, and original contribution in science and technology. And this won't come just like that. It will come through years of continuous work in various domains, in education, creating manpower, creating better laboratories, creating an atmosphere for promoting people who actually do scientific research, and then implementing and connecting the research to the industries and creating values out of the work you do so that the world looks at with great admiration. I think days are not far ahead from to that level. But in the space technology, we have been working with people in the domain of historical research and archaeology. I think that area is what I want to speak today. As already been mentioned, in the domain of understanding Vedic Saraswati River, the ability to observe from space has been really useful, as already done by Dr. Sharma, that he has done a lot of research on this. As all of you know, the Saraswati River was a topic of great interest for all historians, because it has been looked at as a river that was so holy and disappeared. In fact, this can be easily understood today by looking at those domains from the high resolution imaging that we have. And today we're using various satellite data, especially our IRSs. You would have seen we have various instruments on board of them that we call wide field sensors and long exposure cameras. We also can detect the elevation difference between various places and then create a three-dimensional image of those domains and understand even the moisture content in the soil for certain depths, etc., and see that still the water traces are there underground. It is also corroborated by the local measurements and drilling that has been done there. And the entire channel has been demarcated from top to bottom, and by various technologies like the archaeological finding, the sedimentology, hydrology, and drilling data has been used to validate this. And you can even look at this entire results in one of our website. You can note it as Bhuvan. Possibly if you have not seen it, this you can see in the Bhuvan application, and go and see Saraswati. There is a link, and all the findings of this can be still seen there. Similarly, these similar studies have been applied to various other river basins across the nation, including Kaveri in Tamil Nadu, and also the buried channels that existed. Many other rivers have vanished from this country. Possibly you don't know about it. Similarly, we have been working on identifying potential archaeological sites in various states. One of them is very important, is the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro sites in Indus Valley's domain. And also the anomalous forts-like structures. It is called Maruda Takka, which was in the Great Run of Kutch. And similarly, in the northeast of Ahoy village near the Nara Dam, stone waste land, which revealed a lot of ruined structures along this. So all of this, and even including the shorelines changes that occurred in the Gujarat coast, possibly you know that there has been a lot of land be reclaimed and lost over a period of time. And these all have been very clearly demarcated by the satellite data. Of course, we have done this similar exercise in other domains like the Hampi, for example, you know, which is in Karnataka. A lot of work has been done to really pick out all those ruins, and very high resolution satellite data has been created to create a World Heritage Information Management System for Hampi today. And for all the national monuments of this nation, there is a topic called Site Management Inventory of Heritage Centers, which we have created with the help of Ministry of Culture. And this has been implemented almost on 3,658 archaeological sites. And all these sites have been now fully catalogued using satellite data. We have identified, delineated the entire records of that land that they possess. And even of those who wants to construct nearby, that has to go through this data record, so that the decision makers at the district level can actually help them in making use of it. It's also available in app form for those who are interested. It's called a customized SMARSC citizen app. Possibly if you search it, you will be able to find out. And using this, you can actually see now 360-degree views. We go with lidars and cameras on those sites, and all those are captured. And these images and data is also provided in our ISRO's website in Bhuvan, or you can go and see. Some of them are restricted, but it's all available only to those people who have permissions to see. But even for public, some extent of information is already available. And similar exercise we have done at Nalanda archaeological site, which is again a large amount of survey has been done using satellite data. Many of the temple stupa structures, the monasteries, and their shapes and geometrical features have been well documented using satellite data, which is very, very important. And we also looked at Dwaraka. I think possibly you know that the old original Krishna's Dwaraka site, the modern Dwaraka in Jamnagar district, which existed during almost 5,000 years ago. The Mul Dwaraka in Junagadh district. Then Panch Dwaraka near the Wankanar in Rajkot district, Bet Dwaraga they are again at Jamnagar district, and some of them who have been submerged in the Great Rann of Kutch. All these have been looked at by the satellite data, and reasonably good data information has come out of these exercises. So I believe that we can help quite a bit in the understanding of our culture, ancient heritage, data, etc. through the engagement with the space agency, and that's what the interest that I have today with ICHR is not only the historical aspects understanding and realizing who we are, but to also to document and create the required information database for all of us to understand and then see. I think this is very important, and technology is at your disposal to make use of it. As you have seen, how genomics has changed the way the whole narrative. I think we have seen today, I think genomics has come in a big manner in understanding the history today. I think many more technologies will come in our way in the days to come, and we will be very most happy to be part of this journey of ICHR. And we will engage with ICHR in the manner that is needed to create whatever support is required for the better representation of our history and our tradition for the posterity. And I'm very happy today to be part of this, and also very proud to say that we will be the one who will take on the world as the gurus, Vishwa Gurus. And not by the power or the force, but only to showcase that we can guide the world by our knowledge, our sharing of the knowledge, as all that have been depicted by our Honorable Prime Minister. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with eminent historians, which I revere, and trying to learn as much as I can, though I have to deal with something else in my professional life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your presence, as your presence means a lot for us. Our Honorable Chairman, Professor Raghuvendra Tamar, sir, he has a number of reputed publications to his credit, including the most recently published partition of the story of India's partition. Sir, most welcome.
Umesh has already said enough.
Sir.
Dr. Somnath ji, Professor Vasant Shinde, Professor Nirja, my colleague Professor Umesh Ashok Kadam, my honorable members of the council, many of whom are present here, Dr. Om ji and the staff of the ICHR. जैसे आपने देखा आज बहुत एक इंटरेस्टिंग पैनल ये आया है और फैसिनेटिंग था. You know, Praful ji, you really missed a lecture. So it was a fascinating presentation by Professor Shinde. कुछ समय पहले I was in Chennai at a very reputed institute. We were there together. इन्होंने अलग थीम पर बोला, but you know the concept of narrating, the manner in which he presented his recent findings and Rakhi Gadi in particular, I really wanted this Foundation Day lecture. I discussed it with Professor Kadam, and we spontaneously, immediately agreed on it. And I'm so glad that you were here today. We've had two other brilliant speakers. Professor Nirja, you already know much about her. She's a dear colleague in the ICHR. And of course, a man of space in the world of history is it's something new. You know, I'm very grateful that you accepted our invitation. You see what Professor Shinde said. I belong to Haryana, and so we are in touch regularly. And I know at the level of the Chief Minister also and other foundations. See, हरियाणा में एक बड़ी विचित्र बात है कि कई बार मुझे लगता है कि it has not changed. अगर आप हमारे किसी प्राचीन गांव में जाएं, मैं खुद एक बहुत प्राचीन गांव से हूँ, एक किसान परिवार में पैदा हुआ हूँ, और बहुत सी चीज़ें ऐसी हैं जो आप कई बार जब राखी गढ़ी की फ़ोटो देखें या ऋग्वेदिक कल्चर का हल देखें या राखी, तो मुझे लगता है इसी मैं अपनी आई एम ऑलमोस्ट 70 ईयर्स, अब मैंने वो हल एक्चुअली देखा है जिसको हम आप दिखा रहे थे आज. वो अभी तक 40-50 साल तक ग्रामीण हरियाणा में या सब ग्रामीण समस्त भारत में वो हल उसी प्रकार का प्रयोग होता था. अगर आप हमारे गांव को देखें, जो नालियों का सिस्टम है, जो हमारी सड़कों का सिस्टम है, जिस प्रकार से मकानों का जो डिज़ाइन बनता है, बीच में आंगन बनते हैं, चारों तरफ कमरे बनते हैं, घर में जाने से पहले पशुओं के बांधने का कपड़े, ये कोई नई बात नहीं है. So you go by Professor Shinde's research, you know, it is a good 5,000-6,000 years old. See, that is what is truly fascinating. And that is what makes the use of science more interesting. कुरुक्षेत्र जहाँ से मैं बिलोंग करता हूँ, वो सरस्वती का निवास है वो, और हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी का एक मेजर डिपार्टमेंट है जो सरस्वती हेरिटेज बोर्ड का, मेरे ही कोलीग वो उसको देखते हैं, उसमें इसरो का बहुत बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन है. अभी तक ये हाइपोथेटिकल हम लोग बातें करते थे, अब जब भी हम कोई लेक्चर देते हैं या कहीं दिखाते हैं, हम इसरो की फोटो दिखा देते हैं, भाई इसरो वाले भी ये कह रहे हैं। उससे फिर हमारा जो आर्ग्यूमेंट है, यू नो, इट इज़ नेचुरल, यू नो। मैं प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर सोमनाथ जी से चाय अभी आने से पहले बैठा था। इसे एक कॉमन भारतीय के लिए, यू नो, स्पेस का बहुत सिग्निफिकेंस है। स्पेस में रॉकेट हमारे लिए और आपके लिए एक अलग मायने रखते हैं। एक सामान्य व्यक्ति, जो एक साधारण व्यक्ति, उसके लिए स्पेस, सी इट इज़ द काइंड ऑफ फ्लैग बेरर, एक ध्वज जिस व्यक्ति ने उठा रखा है भारत की प्रगति का, भारत के आधुनिकता का, भारत के भविष्य का, वो इसरो है। और इसरो का जो प्रयोग है वो, जैसे बताया डॉक्टर साहब ने, कि अलग अलग क्षेत्रों में, और इतिहास में तो हो ही रहा है, आर्कियोलॉजी में कहिए आप, जेनोमेटिक्स में, जैसे आपने कहा डीएनए की साइंस का कहा, आप लोगों ने सुना, नीरजा जी का लेक्चर आपने सुना, उसमें इसी बेसिकली आई हैव बीन सेइंग दिस फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम, यू नो। मैं तो अपने लेक्चर में हमेशा बात ही यहाँ से शुरू करता हूँ कि हम लोग एक पॉलिटिकल नेशन नहीं है, और हम लोग, वी डोंट कंपेयर इंडिया विद एनी ऑफ द स्मॉल यूरोपियन नेशंस। वी डिड नॉट इवॉल्व फ्रॉम पॉलिटिक्स। हम लोग कोई राजनीति से उत्पन्न नहीं हुए, हम लोग किसी युद्ध से उत्पन्न नहीं हुए, हम लोग किसी राजनीतिक ट्रीटी से उत्पन्न नहीं हुए। वी इवॉल्व ओवर सेंचुरीज। हमारे यहाँ जो है वो, मैं अभी भी बहुत सी, जैसे मैंने बताया, अभी भी खूब गांव में आता जाता हूँ और रहता हूँ। बहुत से ग्रामीण एरिया में मैं शिक्षा के बहुत संस्थान चलाता हूँ हरियाणा में। हरियाणा के ग्रामीण एरियाज में अभी भी वो बातें हैं जो हमारे यहाँ ओरल हिस्ट्री का जो ट्रेडिशन है, यू नो, इट गोज ऑन फ्रॉम एज टू एज, सेंचुरी टू सेंचुरी, 1000 साल पूर्व। मेरा अपना गांव जो है वो 1100 साल पुराना है, और अभी भी ऐसे लगता है जैसे कल की बातें हो रही हैं। हमारे यहाँ, जिसका बाद उमेश जी ने जिक्र किया, जिन 5 वॉल्यूम्स का, छोटू राम जी का, वो हमारे यहाँ एक बहुत अच्छे लेखक, बहुत अच्छे किसान लीडर रहे, एक टारिंग पर्सनैलिटी रहे हैं जॉइंट पंजाब के। वो कहा करते, सांपला एक दिल्ली के रोहतक के रास्ते में एक छोटा सा गांव, तो बहुत बड़ा कस्बा हो गया है। तो ही यूज्ड टू से, अगर सांपला में कोई 500 साल पहले आदमी जन्म हुआ हो और वो किसी चमत्कार से वापस सांपला में आ जाए, तो ही विल फाइंड नो चेंज। आई शुड स्पीक इन, आर यू गेटिंग द पॉइंट? आर यू ओके विद हिंदी? नो, इट्स ओके, ओके। सो यू सी, ही सेज कि 500 साल बाद भी जब कोई आएगा, ही विल बी शॉक टू सी कि बहुत इतना कुछ कम चेंज हुआ है। दिस इज इंडिया, दिस इज हाउ वी हैव इवॉल्व्ड, नीरजा जी, एज अ सिविलाइजेशन, यू नो। एंड so we really need to be proud of it. And as you very rightly said that the Honorable Prime Minister repeatedly says, I have attended some meetings with him on this, that we really need to put this best foot forward. And that is what we are doing at ICHR also. That is what several other organizations are doing. So this is very important that in this particular, you know, 75 years kahiye ya G20 की headship kahiye, even India has woken up now, I would say, you know, हम लोग जाग गए, आंखें खुल गई हैं, और दुनिया को हमने दिखाना है. So tomorrow we are holding a very important meeting at the ICHR. We are going to showcase Kashmir, 5,000 years of Kashmir. It's a very important exhibition that we are working on. So these are some of the things that we are doing at the ICHR. I mean, Dr. Somnath ji ka jaise kaha, so I'm so grateful that he has really put his hand forward. Umesh has done an excellent job in meeting him, finding him out, convincing him to come here, convincing him to do up an MOU with us. And I'm sure that this kind of, this understanding with the ICHR, I am not really sure what path we will be taking, but I'm sure with your understanding and your kindness that you have shown us today, जैसे आप आए हैं हमारे बीच आकर और आपने अपनी स्वीकृति दी है, अपना, you have encouraged us. I'm sure we are going to do an excellent understanding with each other and to the benefit of history as well as to the general representation of our great nation. Now coming to the 51st, Foundation Day. See, last year when I joined ICHR, it was I think the 11th of January. तो जब मैं आया तो ICHR का सारा हलचल हो रही थी, जो मीटिंग्स हो रही थी, शोर मचा हुआ था, गोल्डन जुबली आ रहा है. So I just thought over it, I was a bit hesitant to come, but when I did join here, मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लगा कि यार चलो गोल्डन जुबली के समय एक ईश्वर ने मौका दिया है ICHR को ज्वाइन करने का. और we had an excellent lecture आपको याद होगा, last year we organized an excellent lecture, and I'm so glad that we've kept up that very high tradition this year. ICHR के स्टाफ के बारे में मैं ज़रूर 2 बात कहना चाहूँगा. इसी में लगभग 45 साल का अनुभव है, अनेक पोजीशंस पर रहा हूँ हायर एजुकेशन में. अब मैं सच ईमानदारी से कह रहा हूँ, कोई इसलिए नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि मेरे ये हमारे ऑफिसर्स बैठे हैं सामने, सच बता रहा हूँ कि यहाँ जब मैं आया तो आते ही मेरे याद है मैंने एक कमिटमेंट की, छोटी सी कमेटी बनाई कि यार हमने एक फ्रीडम मूवमेंट पर एक एग्जीबिशन करनी है. इट वाज सो स्पॉन्टेनियस, इतनी सपोर्ट मुझे मिली हर चेहरे. सी दिस इज अ यूनिक बॉडी. मैं सच बता रहा हूँ, मुझे तो कई बार ये भारत सरकार की बॉडी लगती ही नहीं. आप जिस व्यक्ति को देखें, जिस व्यक्ति को कोई टास्क दें, मुझे याद है जब हम लोगों ने एग्जीबिशंस करी पार्टीशन की पर फ्रीडम मूवमेंट पर करी, विदाउट टेलिंग यू नो दे वुड जस्ट कहाँ हो, अच्छा इनकी आदत मेरी भी जल्दी उठने की है, लेट थोड़ा सा, दे हैड द इम्प्रेशन कि सर को किस मर्जी टाइम में फ़ोन करो वो उठा लेंगे। तो रात को 1 बजे भी फ़ोन आ रहा है, रात को 2 बजे भी फ़ोन आ रहे हैं। मैं कह तुम लोग कहाँ बैठे हो? कि सर हम तो अपने कमरे में बैठे हैं, सारी सारी रात ICHR में काम कर रहे हैं बैठे हुए। दिस इज हाउ दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज फंक्शनिंग। एंड यू नो इस प्रकार की यहाँ भावना है, जो आउटपुट हुआ है, यू नो वंडरफुल, they've done an excellent exhibition on the unsung dynasties of Indian history. They've done 2 excellent exhibitions on, see exhibitions में इसलिए कह रहा हूँ क्योंकि ये हमारा आउटरीच प्रोग्राम है, इसमें बहुत मेहनत लगती है। इसी काम, एक किताब छापने में तो 2 लोग बैठे, पर एग्जीबिशन में अलग अलग लोग इन्वॉल्व हैं, अलग अलग परसेप्शंस इन्वॉल्व हैं, लॉट ऑफ वर्क गोइंग। सो दिस बॉडी इज अ रिमार्केबल बॉडी एंड आई रियली विश, आई प्रे टू गॉड कि आप लोगों की यही इस प्रकार की भावना बने रहे और आप मिलजुल कर एक परिवार के संग काम करें। और 51st क्या 151st भी आएगा, तो ये ICHR का जो स्पिरिट है ये यही बना रहे। आई एम कॉन्फिडेंट दैट यू आर गोइंग टू डू वेरी वेल। इन शब्दों के साथ मैं अपनी बात पूरी करूंगा। एंड वंस अगेन आई वुड लाइक टू थैंक माय डिस्टिंग्विश्ड पैनलिस्ट्स फॉर एन एक्सीलेंट presentation. We will, I hope, be putting it on YouTube as well. All the lectures, all the 3 interventions, all the 3 lectures were actually brilliant. I think Umesh is telling me that we will also be publishing it. So once again आप लोग आए हैं, हमारे काफ़ी लोग गेस्ट भी हैं बाहर से, जो हमारे प्रेस के साथी भी हैं। We have distinguished people sitting here. एंड मेरा दिल से आपका हार्दिक अभिनंदन है, आपके प्रति आभार है, आप लोग आए और हमारे इस 51st एनिवर्सरी जो फाउंडेशन डे है इसमें आपने भाग लिया। धन्यवाद।
As sir has said that ICHR officials are very dynamic, and before my dynamic director gives the formal vote of thanks, I would like to put a informal vote of thanks, sir. It has been a marathon session since morning, because we have a general council meeting on our foundation day. Since morning we had a council meeting and all my senior colleagues are sitting in front of me, members of high repute. We have with us Professor K.K. Mohammed ji, our council member, who was actively one of the persons involved in the Ayodhya excavations. हमारे साथ प्रोफेसर सुष्मिता पांडे जी है, इनकी पहचान करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, लेकिन आज भी मैडम ICHR में कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव हिस्ट्री ऑफ भारत की कमान संभाल रही है। आई एम रियली थैंकफुल टू हर दैट एट दिस एज मैडम 9 बजे आती है सुबह, खाना नहीं खाती है। मैडम ने कभी मुझे ऐसे प्रकार का ही टेबल चाहिए और ऐसे प्रकार की कुर्सी चाहिए कभी कहा नहीं। और जब भी कुछ होती है, छोटी सी छोटी बात भी मैडम आके डिस्कस करती है। दिस इज़ अ लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस फॉर मी। वी हैव विद अस रिटायर्ड वाइस चांसलर प्रोफेसर स्मृति कुमार सरकार जी, जो हिस्ट्री ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी का प्रोजेक्ट की कमान हम उन्हीं को संभालने देने वाले हैं, बिकॉज ही इज़ वन ऑफ द पर्सन हु हैज़ वर्कड ऑल हिज लाइफ ऑन हिस्ट्री एंड साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी। हमारे साथ प्रोफेसर ताना सोरेन जी है, जो अपने एरिया के एक बहुत ही डिस्टिंग्विश स्कॉलर है। आज उनसे पहली बार मुलाकात हुई, 10 मिनट के अंदर मुझे बहुत कुछ सीखना मिला। हमारे साथ प्रोफेसर जॉली मैडम बैठी है, जो हमारी मेंबर रही है पिछले बार। जॉली मैडम एक्टिवली हमारे साथ कोई भी काम हो, छोटे से बड़ा, हमेशा शी कम्स एंड हेल्प्स अस। हमारे साथ प्रोफेसर हरिहर पांडा जी है, जो हमारे काउंसिल के मेंबर है। इनका मेरा परिचय बहुत सालों पुराना है। NDA में मैं जब जाता था, माय वाइफ यूज्ड टू टीच इन NDA मैकेट्रॉनिक्स, तब मैं उनसे मिलता था। रात भर हमने बैठ के डिस्कशन किया है हिस्ट्री के पैनल्स। प्राचीन भारत के बहुत ही अच्छे शिक्षक आचार्य हमारे साथ, हमारे काउंसिल मेंबर प्रोफेसर आनंद शंकर सिंह जी बैठे हुए हैं। हमारे साथ ऑर्गेनाइज़र चलाने वाले एक बहुत ही उम्दा, ऐसे जिनको मैं गुरु के स्थान पे रखता हूँ, प्रफुल्ल केतकर जी बैठे हैं। हमारे साथ आज रे माधव पब्लिकेशन के माधव भान जी बैठे हैं, हमारे साथ राकेश मंजुल जी बैठे हैं, हमारे कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव हिस्ट्री ऑफ भारत की कमान संभालने वाले हमारे मित्र डॉक्टर नरेंद्र शुक्ल जी बैठे हैं। मैं ICHR रक्षाबंधन के दिन ज्वाइन हुआ था, उसके पहले मैं सिर्फ मेंबर था ICHR का। ICHR कितना काम उससे पहले करता था मुझे पता नहीं, लेकिन मैं बताना चाहूँगा कि गए 6 महीनों में जो भी मेरा ICHR के स्टाफ के साथ जो भी छोटा मोटा एक्सपीरियंस आया है, मैंने देखा है कि हर एक अफसर जिस पे मैं काम सौंपता हूँ वो अपना तन मन धन लगा के काम करता है। एवरीबडी ऑफ देम हैव हेल्प मी इन वन और द अदर वे। आई कैन रिमेंबर नुपुर सिटिंग ओवर हियर। ये बाहर जो म्यूजियम लगा है, एग्जीबिशन लगा है, नुपुर एक रात पूरी रात वहाँ पे रही ICHR के ऑफिस में, लेकिन उन्होंने वो काम पूरा किया। इवन आफ्टर बीइंग अ लेडी ऑफिसर शी वॉज एबल टू डू दैट। तो जो भी काम हम देते हैं वो करते हैं। राजेश इज़ वन ऑफ आवर डायरेक्टर्स, इन पे बहुत कुछ काम मैंने सौंपे। ही गेव आउट वंडरफुल रिजल्ट्स इन इट। वी हैव सेमिनार संभालने वाले हमारे प्रवीण जी है। प्रवीण ने बहुत ही उम्दा तरीके से गए 6 महीने में सेमिनार्स के सारे काम किए। नौशाद, व्हेन आई आस्क्ड नौशाद इनको जाना है गुवाहाटी, 45 डेज ही वेंट टू गुवाहाटी, और गुवाहाटी का बहुत अच्छा काम उन्होंने संभाल के मुझे दिखाया। वी हैव विद अस नितिन एंड विनोद, दे ऑल्सो आर डूइंग फाइन वर्क इन वन और द अदर वे। ओम जी है जो मेरे पीछे मेरा हर एक काम जो है छोटा मोटा संभाल लेते हैं। मेरे मेंबर सेक्रेटरी यूनिट के जो लोग हैं, स्पेशली माय PS देव जी एंड आशुतोष, both of them have been helping us a lot. And ICHR is not doing only one thing. ICHR के 2-4 चीज़ें और बताऊंगा और फिर वोट ऑफ थैंक्स करेंगे। दैट वी आर वर्किंग ऑन कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव हिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडिया, वी आर वर्किंग ऑन क्रिएशन ऑफ अ डिजिटल लाइब्रेरी फॉर वर्नाकुलर सोर्सेज फॉर बोथ आवर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन ऑफिसर मालविका इज सिटिंग ओवर हियर एंड डॉक्टर ज्योत्सना इज सिटिंग ओवर हियर। दोनों के दोनों जो है वो उस काम में लगे पड़े हैं, क्योंकि 150 ऐसी प्राइवेट इंस्टीट्यूशन से हम पांडुलिपियाँ और हस्तलिखितों में सारा कुछ लेके आ रहे हैं और वो हम ICHR के पोर्टल पे डाल रहे हैं। सो दे आर वर्किंग ऑन दैट। ICHR is also working on science and technology project. ICHR is working on economic history of India project. ICHR is working simultaneously on various exhibitions. One fine exhibition which we have targeted at till October. That is another thing which we are doing. So this is an informal thanks. मैं आपका ऋण से बाहर नहीं जाना नहीं चाहता, मैं आपका ऋणी रहना चाहता हूँ पूरे मेरा जीवन काल। शायद मैं ICHR में रहूँ ना रहूँ, लेकिन मैं आपका जो ऋण है उसमें रहूँगा। धन्यवाद।
बहुत धन्यवाद सर। इसके बाद आभार की औपचारिकता ही है। बस मैं आदरणीय मंच, अमृतकाल में जो भारत की प्रगति को अंतरिक्ष में और अधिक मजबूती के साथ स्थापित करने का प्रयास करने वाले आज के हमारे माननीय मुख्य अतिथि श्री S सोमनाथ जी, जो इसरो के चेयरमैन हैं, राखी गढ़ी के माध्यम से इतिहास की एक बड़ी प्रस्थापना जो दुर्भाग्य से सर के बल खड़ी कर दी गई थी, उसको फिर से पैर के बल खड़ा करने वाले आदरणीय प्रोफेसर वसंत सिंधे जी, मातृस्वरूपा आदरणीय प्रोफेसर नीरजा अरुण गुप्ता जी, आप सभी को आभार, अभिनंदन, नमन। इस कार्यक्रम को वास्तविकता के धरातल तक लाने में हमारे माननीय अध्यक्ष आदरणीय प्रोफेसर रघुवंत तंवर जी एवं माननीय सदस्य सचिव प्रोफेसर उमेश अशोक कदम जी को भी हमारा धन्यवाद, आभार। हमारे सभी अधिकारीगण और हमारे आदरणीय मेंबर्स प्रोफेसर ताना सोरेन जी, प्रोफेसर सुष्मिता पांडे जी, प्रोफेसर आनंद शंकर सिंह जी, प्रोफेसर स्मृति कुमार सरकार जी, डॉक्टर के मोहम्मद जी, प्रोफेसर हरिहर पांडा जी, आप सभी के प्रति हमारा आभार। आदरणीय प्रोफेसर ओम प्रकाश पांडे सर, जो अग्रपंक्ति में इधर विराजित हैं, आप सर 2 प्रधानमंत्रियों के वैज्ञानिक सलाहकार का दायित्व का निर्वहन कर चुके हैं। इनका लगातार हमें सानिध्य मार्गदर्शन मिलता रहता है। सर, आपके प्रति आभार। हमारे इतने छोटे इनविटेशन पे आप यहाँ पधारे। जो फैकल्टी मेंबर्स बहुत सारे जगहों से, कॉलेजेस से, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के कॉलेजेस से पधारे हैं, उन सबको के प्रति हमारा आभार। प्रोफेसर सुरजीत कौर जौली जी, माधव भान जी, आप सभी के प्रति हम सब आभारी हैं। हमारे बीच राकेश मंजुल जी, नरेंद्र जी, प्रफुल्ल केतकर जी और सभी ICHR के अधिकारीगण जिनका अभी नामोल्लेख हमारे सदस्य सचिव महोदय ने किया, सभी कर्मी, आपके बिना किसी भी चीज़ की हम कल्पना नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि ICHR एक परिवार की तरह चलने वाला संगठन है। ये हम सब ने शायद अपने व्यवहार से, अपने कार्यों से स्थापित किया है। आप सबके प्रति आभार, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आप सभी कृपया राष्ट्रगान के लिए अपने स्थान पर खड़े हो जाए। शेखर।
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा, तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तब जय गाथा, जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
भारत माता की, भारत माता की। कृपया आप सभी फायर एरिया में हमें हाई टी के लिए ज्वाइन करें। प्रोफेसर ओम प्रकाश पांडे जी।